Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a big one, a question that really gets to the very heart of how we study the human mind. Can psychology really, truly be called an empirical science?
And this is the real puzzle, isn't it? When you think about science, you think about stuff you can see, things you can measure. But how in the world do you measure feeling? How do you scientifically pin down a belief or, weigh a dream? It's tricky. Okay, so before we dive any deeper, let's get on the same page. What do we even mean by an empirical science? Well, think about physics, biology, chemistry. It's all about direct, objective observation and experiments. That's the gold standard for the hard sciences. So the big question is, does psychology fit that mold? To really get this, we've got to go back. I'm talking way, way back. Not to a modern laboratory, but to ancient Greece. Because the very first people to really dig into the nature of the mind, they weren't scientists, they were philosophers.
And just look at this timeline. I mean, it's kind of wild. For over 2,000 years, trying to understand the mind was a job for philosophers. The whole idea of a psychology lab is incredibly new in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and you can see here, folks like Plato and Aristotle, they weren't trying to run experiments or measure brainwaves. That wasn't the point. They were asking totally different kinds of questions about ethics, about character, about how to live a good life. For them, the mind, or the soul as they called it, was the key to human flourishing. All right, let's fast forward a lot, all the way to the 19th century. This is where everything changes. Because one man comes along and decides it's time for psychology to get out of the philosopher's armchair and into the laboratory. And that man was Wilhelm Wundt. He was actually the very first person to ever call himself a psychologist, and his mission was absolutely revolutionary. He wanted to take the messy internal world of our consciousness and study it with the same scientific rigor you'd use for a chemical reaction. So, how did he plan on doing that? Well, his big idea was something he called structuralism. He believed you could break down consciousness into its fundamental building blocks. It's like creating a periodic table of the mind. If you could just identify the core components, the basic sensations, feelings, and images, you could map out the entire structure of the mind. But of course, no big idea goes unchallenged. Wundt's scientific approach almost immediately ran into a powerful counterargument, and this kicked off a huge intellectual battle that honestly is still shaping psychology to this day. And this table really breaks it down perfectly. You've got Wundt's structuralism on one side, asking, what are the basic parts of the mind? But then, coming out of America, you have this new school of thought called functionalism, asking a totally different question. Why? Why do we have these thoughts and feelings? What's their purpose? What do they do for us? The main figure behind functionalism was William James, and a huge influence for him was Charles Darwin. So James looked at the mind and didn't see a static structure to be picked apart. No, he saw a dynamic, flowing stream of consciousness that must have evolved for a reason, to help us survive and adapt to our world. So what did Wundt think of all this? He was not a fan. He famously dismissed James's work, saying, "It is literature, it is beautiful, but not psychology." Ouch. And that single quote just perfectly captures the fundamental conflict right at the very heart of early psychology. So Wundt versus James, science versus function. After more than a century of debate, where have we landed? Well, a more modern approach suggests that asking who was right might actually be the wrong question altogether. Instead of seeing this as a battle to be won, the focus now has shifted. Modern psychology tends to see these historical schools as different lenses, or different tools in a toolbox, that we can use to understand the human experience from various angles. And that's really the goal today. It's not just about memorizing theories from a textbook. It's about moving from just remembering something to truly understanding it, and then, and this is the most important part, actually applying it in a way that can make a real difference in our lives. This brings us to a fantastic, practical tool called the Wise Mind Model. It basically says we all have this emotional mind that reacts based on feelings, and we have a rational mind that's all about logic. You can almost see the ghosts of that old debate right there, this subjective experience versus the objective analysis. But here's the key. The goal isn't to let one side win. It's not about being more rational or more emotional. The real magic happens when you cultivate a wise mind, a state where you can listen to both your heart and your head, integrate their perspectives, and respond with balance and awareness. And that brings us full circle. So, is psychology an empirical science? The answer, it seems, is it's complicated. Perhaps its greatest strength isn't about perfectly fitting a rigid scientific definition. Maybe its real power is in being a toolkit, a collection of incredible lenses that help us navigate the amazing complexity of just being human.